This is JCU Conversations, a podcast show from James Cook University, Singapore. Tune in as we ask experts in the industry more about their lives and their approach to success. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's listen to today's episode.
Hi, I'm Steffie Vanessia, President of James Cook University Singapore Alumni Association and Investor Relations Associate at Tribeca Investment Partners. Our guest today is Mr. Sreeram Iyer, the Global Chief Operating Officer at ANZ Bank's Institutional Banking Business and Head of Group Capability Centres. He's also the former CEO of Scope International, and he currently serves as a member of the Board of Advisors and a member of the Business School Advisory Subcommittee at James Cook University, Singapore. Welcome, Sreeram. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
All right. Then, without further ado, we have a list of questions for you, and we are so grateful to have you here today to share your insights with us. So, as a quick introduction, if you don't mind, can you briefly share your journey and experiences in the banking and tech world that have led you to your current role?
Right. Thank you for this opportunity. I have been in banking for close to 28 years now. I did 18 years with another large global bank. And I'm now with ANZ Banking Corporation, which is about a $70 billion market cap bank for the last 11 years. And as you said, I'm running the corporate and institutional banking chief operating officer position. Prior to this, when I qualified and I got into my work life, I got into management consulting first, and then I did manufacturing industry for about 6 years. So that is my brief history. And in my current role, there's been an extension of my responsibilities where I also am now accountable to run our what we call group capability centers. And we can talk about that later.
Excellent, excellent. Given your significant experience in the banking and finance industry, you were saying basically decades, what insights and advice can you share for people who are looking to enter or grow in the industry?
Well, firstly, apart from my bias, I have to say that banking is at least a formal 250-year-old industry, right? So it's not going anywhere in the sense of a downside. So it is the industry that has huge sustainable value, and there will be elements of banking that naturally will change over time because of technology, but it is a fantastic place to be in. It is a great, impactful industry which touches all parts of all economies wherever it is present. And there is huge maturity of different types. It impacts all our lives. So I would say to qualifying students, if you're even thinking about banking, do not hesitate. The great thing in the last maybe 3 decades is that banking and technology have come together like never before. And technology is, you can't lift a finger these days without technology. So if you got an industry which relies and grows and adds value using technology, and that industry itself has a huge impact on the society, then that combination is a great one. And so my bias is do consider banking.
I can definitely relate to that bias since I'm a finance professional as well.
Yes.
And when you look at the marriage between technology and banking, we experience it daily in our lives with digital banking, as well as the current changing landscape with AI and technology, which I promise you we will touch upon a bit later. It's a big topic. But before that, I kind of want to go back to the first question, right? Speaking about growth in the financial industry. Maybe tell us a bit more about your new additional responsibilities you mentioned earlier and what opportunities this may present for global mindset, since after all our university is quite an international space to be in.
Good. That's a good question. So when you think about a big bank which is present in many dozen countries around the world, it is generally speaking, a complicated organization to run it and to keep it tight. And one of the prerequisites of running a bank, I'm not saying I run the bank, but I'm a part of the leadership team, is to manage risks, right? Now, part of the thing about operating model over time is that technology in the last 20 years or thereabouts has enabled the establishment of separate, dedicated capability centers which service the rest of the bank. So there are many activities, business product work, analytical work, risk work, processing work, lots of components of work which are housed together under one umbrella, which is part of the bank, but they are co-located for scale and for adoption of technology. So they are called by different names. Some companies call them offshore centers, some call them business process outsourcing, some call them innovation centers. The name at one level doesn't matter. We tend to call it Group Capability Center. We have a presence in India. We have a presence in Manila. We have more than 10,000 employees who are all part of ANZ Bank, most of them I would say, and they add huge value to the rest of the bank.
Very nice. And I think this will be really valuable insight for our students as well. Our students come from various international countries, be it India, China, Indonesia, and within Singapore itself as well. So definitely this shows us there's a lot of global opportunities here, even within banking, right?
And you use the word global mindset, and that is the right phrase, because the more students, I would say, get to understand how the construct of banks have evolved over time. And remember, there are some, give or take, 30,000 banks in the world. So there are different scale and different complexities. So the more, for example, students out of Singapore get to know the global models in which this industry works, then your eyes open up to different opportunities in different situations.
Right, okay. Then I suppose looking at this incredible global workforce, and you told me earlier, I think your team that you manage is about 10,000. That's
right.
huge. That's incredible. So as a chief operating officer, I really would like to dig your mind here. What strategies do you employ to foster a culture of collaboration and drive high performance teams?
Culture of collaboration and high-performance teams. Now, that is a difficult question. Yes, I do have a large team. Yes, it exceeds 10,000 people. But there's one thing which is important, which is bigger than sort of my team, which is the culture of the organization. Right? In ANZ's case, we have ballpark some 45,000 employees around the world. And so the top leadership of the bank, by and large, sets the culture of the full complement of people, in this case, roughly 45,000. And so first job is to make sure that whatever, in this case, the team that I run, mirrors and marries what the company expects you to do, which is, in our case, you have a proper enterprise culture, which hinges on the purpose of the company. So in our case, we have decided as a bank several years ago that we want to make an impact in the communities that we operate in and help people and communities thrive in the banking services that we offer. That might sound a little bit high level and fluffy, but the point is that that purpose decides the culture, and the culture decides how each part of the company adopts that culture. Never easy, difficult to measure, but a lot depends on how the companies are run, because banking has got so many instances where poor culture leads to absolute bankruptcy of the company. We had one very recently, hardly 4 months ago, and there's no surprise. It sort of happens periodically. I've seen it over the decades. But one common factor is this issue of culture. So I can't help saying that if I'm a newly qualified student and I'm evaluating where do I kind of take my next opportunity, I would really say spend some time reading about the culture of the proposed company. Right? You will get lots of inputs from annual reports, investor reports. You run investor relations, and understand the culture of the leadership of the company. And people like me who are a subset of the big company have to live what we are supposed to be. In the case of banking, at the end of the day, banks actually have quite a hollow balance sheet. By that I mean almost nothing belongs to the bank. All the money that is there belongs to someone else. All the monies that we have lent is actually to be repaid so that we can repay customers who have paid us. We own the buildings and all that, but Actually, the balance sheet is quite hollow. So the point I'm making is there is a massive position of trust that the community expects on us, and culture has to represent that trust. So ethics is a big thing for banks, as you can imagine, when you're managing others' monies. So all of these, I'm of course compressing this big topic, but all of these are the ways in which you demonstrate your day-to-day behaviors. There's no Friday I'll work like this and December I'll be like this, but January I'll be different. It can't be like that. It has to be the same. So if that is lived, then whether it's a 10,000 man company or a 5,000 or 15,000 doesn't matter. It's the way companies are run. Then there's a last point I'd make is, how do you know whether it is actually in play or not? You can tell yourself that I did my best, but it still didn't work. And so the important thing about running culture is finding ways to evaluate whether that works or not. So for example, I did not quite value it in so many years until about 5-7 years ago, which is, there is one element of culture called speak up, right? Speak up culture. The question is, does your company encourage speak up culture? Meaning, employees around the world, from New York to New Zealand and everything in between, regardless of the grade in which you are you allowed to speak up whatever you think is right in a respectful way? Right? Because that means that you hear the voice. Otherwise, all these senior leaders sit in their large cabins on some top floor and will not know what's happening. Only when employees have the license to speak up will the culture start to filter up, right? Then how do you measure speak up? So then there are surveys, and then you measure whether 87% of your employees said they can speak up, and then last year it was 75 and now it's 87, so maybe we are getting better. If it drops to 50, you say, my God, employees are telling us they are not willing to speak up. So it's a problem.
Yeah.
So there are pointers like that on culture that you have to unpeel. And as much as banking is difficult in its own way, culture is even more difficult. So you've got to work at it, measure it, evaluate it, and rectify it.
Very well put.
Yeah.
I really like the way that you put culture and understanding the company's missions and values. As you say, it might sound fluffy and high level, but honestly, when you dig into it, what makes a good organization is
Correct.
one that has good values, and that is how you can find somewhere that you'd like to work at and
Correct.
feel that there's a purpose in your role. And beautifully put as well, that speak up culture. I think this is one that I'd like to emphasize to the students as well, especially. Don't be shy. That's how the culture travels up, and you have to speak up to get your points across. Again, it's about starting conversations, JCU conversations.
Yes. There's another aspect that people like me have to bear in mind, and I say people like me because we have done so many decades, that the current preference of most of the current millennial employees is licensed to speak up. You don't need approval these days to type whatever you want to type. It's only the keyboard that stops you. So the company has to be ready to digest what comes up. Not only should you allow and permit respectful conversations, you should also be able to digest what comes up, right? So it's a two-way thing.
Yeah, it's a two-way thing, definitely. But I suppose on that, I'm gonna press on this difficult issue a bit. It's a hot button issue since the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. With remote working versus going to the office, and clearly this has impacted as well a little bit on communication flow as well as team management. And as you say, let alone managing a global workforce. Imagining this global workforce that, let's say, a percentage of them is at home and a percentage of them in the office, and comes with its own pros and cons. I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
So thankfully you said it's a hot topic, because it is turned out to be a hot topic. I wish it was not a hot topic. So call me what you like, call me old-fashioned, whatever. But the truth is, in my personal opinion, if an operating model of a large global company with several thousand employees is to have a model where employees choose to work from home as one bookend, I cannot be convinced that that is as good or will be as superior as the historical model of working physically. Now, I am sensible enough to understand that you don't need to swing the pendulum back to the old days. You don't need the other bookend to not tolerate work from home or flexible. So it is somewhere in between. But if interesting, I'll go back to the culture point. If the culture of the company is pro-employees fundamentally, which permits flexibility as required for your living, for your life circumstances, for your life challenges, where the company supports you for many things that you encounter at a personal level, and yet you are able to produce, efficiently for the business outcomes, then what else does an employee really need apart from compensation and all that? So the question is not really, unfortunately, phrased as work from home or work from office. The question is the culture of the company adequate enough to recognize that not all employees around the world at the same time have the same circumstances to have one cookie cutter model? That no longer works. So, could we have done this podcast as efficiently, you sitting in your bedroom and me sitting in my bedroom? I can't be convinced that it will be as good as this one, however this might end. So then why would we question the importance of working in a bank? You're dealing with millions of customers who all, they don't frankly care where you work from. But what they care for is how exactly you protect their money and how exactly you service them, right? So these are difficult topics, but I'm in the camp which believes that, my personal opinion, that we must have flexibility, we must acknowledge different life circumstances, daily circumstances and milestone circumstances. So daily could be I need to go to the dentist today. Milestone could be I got a kid and so I got to figure out what I have to do. All those have to be factored in. And so those are policies which are employee denominated. They're not necessarily operating model cookie cutter to say work from home on Monday, but come on Tuesday, go back on Wednesday, come back on Thursday. It's not relevant, right? So the great thing about technology, as you know, is it enables all of this. Then the question is, how much of this should you encourage? How much of this should you insist? And how much of this should you tolerate? No perfect answer, but it is a hot topic.
In my opinion, actually, it's a perfect answer because when you think about it, flexibility is the hybrid model, the best of both worlds, right? And true enough, there's no cookie cutter model that fits just everyone. We are in the age of digitization and customizability. Why should we let that not get into our work life as well? So with flexibility, we can customize it, as you say, whether it be daily needs or milestone needs. As long as there's that culture of flexibility in your work, then definitely it's able to accommodate.
I have a 21-year-old son who's about to get into the workforce 1 week from now. Where are we? Yeah, 1 week from now. And as he was, signing up to this company, one of the things I remember him telling me, he's in the United States, is I don't know their policy about work from home. I said, why the hell do you have to care? Or shouldn't you be turning up and going there? And what else do you have to do on a daily basis? So make the most of it. Get onto the office, meet as many people, learn as much as you can, work hard, and do what. And if on a certain time you need to not go and attend to something else, I got to get a driving license, of course, go do that, right? So it depends what mental perspective you come in with. So I would hesitate to say that a new entrant to a workforce, that this should be a big topic for discussion for that person. I can't be convinced that it's the most important topic.
I suppose it would be a part of consideration, perhaps not the most important topic, because I definitely agree. There is a reason why we're sitting here in front of each other right now and not doing it over Zoom. Perhaps in my personal experience in the industry, when you have a Zoom meeting, it is simply not as impactful as an in-person meeting. In the end, we are still in a people business. It's very relationship-oriented. It's very important. There's this feeling that you get when you're here physically instead of digitally.
Yes, absolutely. It's just that you can see that I'm sweating, but apart from that, Zoom would have been better. No, I'm kidding. No.
I hope you're not sweating because of my difficult questions.
Not at all. No. Pleasure.
Okay, excellent. But now that we're talking about Zoom and technology and all, I'm going to talk about the next big thing, in my opinion, my humble opinion perhaps. AI and ML, artificial intelligence, machine learning, automation. With the rapid advancement of AI, automation, and ML, how do you see the future of work evolving? And what role humans will play in this changing landscape, especially in the banking sector? You know that we have been very fast in evolving, perhaps even accelerated by the pandemic into digital banking. You are the head of group capability centers, and now we have this AI and ML thing coming.
Right. It's a good question.